Recently, a lot of people have been claiming that olive oil fasting can boost autophagy and improve insulin resistance in just one day. But is this actually true? Or is it just another internet trend that sounds too good to be real? Before we go any further, let me be clear about something important. Drinking olive oil is not fasting in the traditional sense. When you drink olive oil, you are consuming calories, about 120 calories per tablespoon. So why do people still call it fasting? The answer lies in how your body responds to different types of food. Not all calories are processed the same way by your body. And this is what makes olive oil interesting to researchers. This is educational content, not medical advice. If you have any health conditions, please talk to your doctor before trying any fasting method. In this video, we are going to look at the science behind these claims. How does olive oil actually affect your body? Can it support the autophagy process? And most importantly, who should try this, who should not, and how to do it safely if you decide to give it a shot. Let us start with the basics. What exactly is autophagy? Think about your house for a moment. Over time, broken stuff accumulates. A chair with a broken leg, a refrigerator that no longer works. Things you do not use anymore. If you never clean up your house, becomes more and more cluttered and harder to live in. Your body works the same way. Every day your cells produce proteins, use energy, and in the process, some things get damaged or are no longer needed. Old proteins that do not fold correctly. Mitochondria that do not produce energy efficiently anymore. Bits of bacteria or viruses that sneak into your cells. Autophagy is the process where your body cleans up these broken things. The word autophagy comes from Greek meaning self-eating. It sounds scary, but this is actually a completely normal and beneficial process. When autophagy happens, your cells collect damaged proteins, cell parts that no longer work well, and even invading bacteria. Then these are broken down and recycled into new materials that your body can use. It is like having a recycling system built right into every cell. In 2016, Japanese scientist Yoshinori Osumi won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for discovering how autophagy works. He spent years studying yeast cells, watching what happened when he starved them. He found 15 genes that control this cellular cleaning process. The interesting thing is that this mechanism works similarly in the human body. The same genes that control autophagy in yeast also exist in humans. Researchers believe autophagy is connected to longevity and disease prevention. When autophagy works well, cells stay clean and function properly. When autophagy declines, which happens naturally, as we age, waste accumulates and may contribute to diseases like Alzheimer's, type 2, diabetes, and cancer. This is why so many people are interested in finding ways to boost autophagy. The idea is that if you can keep your cells clean, you might be able to slow down aging and reduce your risk of disease. So the question is, how do you activate autophagy? And what role does olive oil play in this story? To understand this, we need to talk about what happens when you fast. When you eat especially carbohydrates and protein, your body produces insulin. Insulin is a hormone that helps move sugar from your blood into your cells to be used as energy. But insulin does something else too. It signals to your body that food is available, so the body should focus on building and storing. When insulin is high, your body is in building mode, not cleaning mode. It makes sense when you think about it. If food is abundant, your body prioritizes growth and storage. Cleaning and recycling can wait. Inside your cells, there are two important systems related to this. The first is called mTOR. When you eat enough, mTOR is active. It pushes cells to grow and make new proteins. This is good when you need to build muscle. But when mTOR is always active because you are always eating, autophagy gets suppressed. Your cells never get the signal to start cleaning up. The second is called AMPK. This is your cell's energy sensor. When energy is low, AMPK gets activated. AMPK has the opposite effect of mTOR. It suppresses mTOR and activates autophagy. Think of AMPK as the signal that tells your body resources are low and it is time to start recycling and conserving. When you stop eating, here is what happens to your body. During the first 0 to 12 hours, your body uses glucose from your recent meal and glycogen stored in your liver. Glycogen is basically stored sugar that your body keeps for backup energy. From 12 to 16 hours, things start to change. Insulin drops significantly. AMPK starts to increase. Autophagy begins to activate. This is the transition period where your body realizes that no more food is coming and it needs to start conserving and cleaning. From 16 to 24 hours, autophagy becomes more active. Your body shifts to burning fat for energy. Ketones start being produced to fuel your brain. Many people report feeling more mentally clear during this phase. After 24 hours, autophagy continues and the benefits accumulate. The longer you fast, the deeper your body goes into this cleaning and repair mode. This is why fasting is known for many health benefits. But there is a practical problem. Not everyone can fast for 24 hours or more. Hunger fatigue, difficulty concentrating, and irritability make many people give up before reaching the point where autophagy really kicks in. And this is where olive oil enters the story. Olive oil, especially extra virgin olive oil, contains two important groups of components. The first is oleic acid, which makes up about 70 to 80% of olive oil. This is a type of monounsaturated fat. The important thing is that pure fat causes almost no insulin spike. Unlike carbohydrates or protein, fat enters your body without triggering a strong insulin response. Your body processes fat through a different pathway that does not require much insulin. This is a key point. If the main trigger for suppressing autophagy is high insulin and olive oil does not raise insulin significantly, then theoretically, olive oil should not interfere with the fasting state in the same way that eating carbohydrates or protein would. The second group is polyphenols, which are plant compounds with biological activity. In extra virgin olive oil, the two most important polyphenols are hydroxytyrosol and oleuropein. These are what create the slightly bitter, slightly peppery taste of high-quality olive oil. If your olive oil is smooth and has no bite to it, it probably has lower polyphenol content. Remember what we said earlier. High insulin suppresses autophagy. Because olive oil does not cause a significant insulin spike in theory, it does not break the metabolic state that fasting creates. But the story gets even more interesting. Laboratory studies show that hydroxytyrosol and oleuropein can directly activate AMPK. This means, instead of just not interfering with autophagy, these compounds may actually support the process. They may be able to flip the switch that tells your cells to start cleaning. A study published in the journal Nutrients showed that oleuropein can activate autophagy in brain cells, helping remove toxic proteins associated with Alzheimer's disease. The researchers found that when brain cells were exposed to these toxic proteins, oleuropein helped the cells clear them out through autophagy. Another study in the Journal of Translational Medicine found that hydroxytyrosol has anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects, while also supporting mitochondrial function, the energy factories inside your cells. A third study found that olive oil polyphenols can suppress mTOR, which, as we discussed earlier, is the pathway that inhibits autophagy when it is too active. However, there is an important caveat. Most of these studies were done in laboratories on cells or animals. We do not have many large-scale clinical studies on humans to confirm that drinking olive oil will double autophagy as some people claim. The science shows potential, but potential is not the same as fully proven. We need more research on actual humans to know for sure. So why are many people still interested in this method? Part of the answer lies in the long history of olive oil in cultures with the longest lifespans in the world. In 1958, American physiologist Ansel Keys noticed something strange. Heart disease was killing wealthy businessmen in America, but the people of Crete in Greece had very low rates of heart disease and lived very long lives. What surprised Keys was that the Cretans ate a lot of fat. Their diet got about 35 to 40% of calories from fat, which was considered high. But their fat came mainly from olive oil. Keys began a study that lasted 25 years, following more than 12,000 men in 7 countries, including the United States, Finland, the Netherlands, Italy, Yugoslavia, Greece, and Japan. The results published in 1980 showed a clear connection. People who ate the Mediterranean way had significantly lower rates of heart disease and death compared to those eating Western diets high in saturated fat. Keys believed in his findings so much that he moved to Piopi, a small coastal town in southern Italy, and ate the Mediterranean diet for the rest of his life. He lived to be 100 years old. But there is a detail in Keys' research that is often overlooked. The people of Crete did not just eat a lot of olive oil. They also practiced regular fasting as part of Greek Orthodox tradition. The Orthodox fasting calendar includes about 180 to 200 days per year with dietary restrictions at various levels. On many days they avoided meat, dairy, and eggs, but olive oil was usually allowed. In other words, the combination of olive oil and fasting has existed in Mediterranean culture for thousands of years, long before anyone knew about autophagy or AMPK. People followed these practices for religious reasons, not health reasons. But the health benefits may have been a side effect all along. Of course, correlation does not mean causation. Mediterranean people may live long due to many factors such as fresh vegetables, physical activity, strong social relationships, and less stress. No one can say for certain that olive oil plus fasting is the only reason for their longevity. But when modern science starts to understand why olive oil may be beneficial at the cellular level, the story becomes more interesting. Now let us talk about insulin resistance and how olive oil fasting might help. Let us go back to insulin. Normally when insulin is released, cells listen and open the door for glucose to enter. But when you constantly eat a lot, especially sugar and starch, insulin is released continuously throughout the day. Over time, cells become tired of this constant signal and start ignoring it. This is called insulin resistance. Cells no longer respond well to insulin. As a result, glucose builds up in the blood because cells are not letting it in efficiently. The body responds by producing even more insulin to try to force the glucose into cells. Insulin resistance is the first step leading to type 2 diabetes. But it is also connected to many other problems, including weight gain, especially around the belly fatigue after meals, chronic inflammation, and increased risk of heart disease. According to estimates, hundreds of millions of people worldwide have insulin resistance at various levels, and many do not know it. This is one of the reasons fasting attracts so much attention. When you do not eat, insulin drops. When insulin stays low for long enough, cells have a chance to rest and recover their sensitivity to insulin. Many studies show that intermittent fasting can improve insulin sensitivity after a few weeks of practice. So what role does olive oil play? Animal studies show that a diet rich in extra virgin olive oil can improve insulin sensitivity and beta cell function, which are the cells that produce insulin in the pancreas. A study on diabetic mice showed that when saturated fat was replaced with olive oil, blood sugar markers and insulin resistance both improved significantly. The proposed mechanism is that oleic acid and polyphenols in olive oil have anti-inflammatory effects, and chronic inflammation is one of the root causes of insulin resistance. Before you think about trying olive oil fasting, you need to know clearly that this method is not suitable for everyone. Some groups of people should avoid it completely, or only try it under medical supervision. Pregnant or breastfeeding women should not try this. The body needs stable nutrition during pregnancy and breastfeeding. Any form of fasting can affect the baby's development or milk production. People with a history of eating disorders should be very careful. Restrictive eating methods can trigger unhealthy thoughts and behaviors. People with diabetes who are taking insulin or blood sugar lowering medications must be extremely cautious. Fasting can cause dangerous low blood sugar. If you want to try, you must have supervision from a doctor who can adjust your medications. People with gallbladder problems should avoid this. Olive oil stimulates bile secretion. If you have gallstones or have had your gallbladder removed, drinking a lot of olive oil can cause discomfort or more serious problems. People taking blood-thinning medications should consult their doctor first. Some components in olive oil may interact with medications. Children and teenagers should not fast. Growing bodies need adequate nutrition, not fasting. People with serious chronic diseases, including kidney disease, liver disease, or those undergoing cancer treatment, should ask their doctor first. Even if you do not belong to any of the groups above, stop immediately if you experience severe dizziness that does not improve abnormal rapid heartbeat, severe nausea, or any symptom that worries you. Mild discomfort when starting is normal. But if your body is sending alarm signals, listen to it. What I am sharing below are general principles based on what people discuss in the fasting community. This is not medical guidance. Everyone is different, and you should research carefully and consult experts before trying anything new. The first principle is to start small. If you have never tried any form of fasting, do not jump straight into 24-hour olive oil fasting. Instead, start with regular intermittent fasting for a few weeks to let your body adjust. After that, if you want to try adding olive oil, start with a small amount, 1 teaspoon during your fasting window. See how your body reacts. Increase gradually only if you feel good. The second principle is that quality matters. Not all olive oil is the same. The beneficial polyphenols are concentrated in high-quality extra virgin olive oil. Refined olive oil or cheap olive oil may have lost most of these compounds. Signs of good olive oil include a slightly bitter taste, a slightly peppery sensation in the back of your throat, and a fresh aroma. The third principle is to stay well hydrated. Whether you use olive oil or not, hydration is extremely important when fasting. Drink enough water throughout the day. The fourth principle is not to extend too long. Olive oil fasting should not be considered a lifestyle replacement for normal eating. If you try it limited to short periods and observe how your body responds. The fifth principle is to break your fast carefully. When you finish, do not eat a big meal immediately. Start with light, easily digestible food and slowly return to normal eating. Now let us talk honestly about the claims you may have seen on the internet. Olive oil fasting doubles autophagy. Do we have solid evidence for this? Not really. Studies show that polyphenols in olive oil can activate pathways related to autophagy in laboratory settings. But measuring autophagy in living humans is extremely difficult, and we do not have clinical studies proving that drinking olive oil will double anything. Stops insulin resistance in just one day. Insulin sensitivity can improve through fasting, and olive oil may support this process over time. But stopping insulin resistance in one day is too strong a claim. Insulin resistance develops over many years and takes time to improve. So is olive oil fasting meaningless? Not necessarily. The real value may lie in a few things. First, it may help some people maintain fasting more easily. A little olive oil can reduce hunger without causing a significant insulin spike. Second, if you are regularly consuming extra virgin olive oil as part of your diet, you are getting beneficial polyphenols whether you fast or not. Third, experimenting and learning how your body responds has its own value as long as you do it safely. So is olive oil fasting a miracle solution? No. But is it completely meaningless? Also no. Science shows that extra virgin olive oil contains compounds that may support beneficial cellular processes. Because fat does not cause a significant insulin spike in theory, it interferes less with the fasting state than other types of food. But remember, drinking olive oil is still consuming calories. It is not the same as water fasting. And strong claims like doubling autophagy need more research to confirm. The most interesting thing may be this. Mediterranean cultures have combined olive oil and fasting for thousands of years without knowing about autophagy or AMPK. They just followed tradition and lived healthy lives. Sometimes modern science is just explaining what our grandparents knew long ago. I want to hear your thoughts. Have you tried any form of fasting? And if you know someone who is interested in fasting but finds complete fasting too difficult, share this video with them. If you want to understand more about the science behind fasting, subscribe and turn on notifications. We will continue exploring what your body can do when given the chance. Why creatine plus fasting might be the ultimate fat loss combo. What if you could burn fat while protecting your muscle at the same time? That sounds like the holy grail of body transformation. And for most people, it feels impossible. You either cut calories and watch your strength disappear, or you eat enough to keep your muscle but struggle to lose fat. But here is something interesting. Two of the most talked about tools in fitness, fasting and creatine might actually work together better than anyone expected. Now I know what you are thinking. Creatine is for building muscle. Fasting is for losing weight. How can they possibly go together? That is exactly what we are going to explore today. Not with hype or marketing claims, but with actual science. What happens in your body when you fast? What creatine actually does at the cellular level, and whether combining them makes sense for your goals. Before we dive in, a quick note. This is educational content, not medical advice. Everyone's body is different. If you have any health conditions or concerns, talk to your doctor before making changes to your diet or supplement routine. All right, let us start with the basics. When you stop eating, your body does not just sit there waiting for food. It starts making adjustments. Think of it like a power grid that switches to backup generators when the main supply goes down. Normally, your body runs on glucose. That is the sugar that comes from the food you eat, especially carbohydrates. Your muscles, your brain, your organs, they all use glucose as their primary fuel. But when you stop eating, that glucose supply starts running low. Your body has some glucose stored in your liver and muscles called glycogen. This can last anywhere from 12 to 24 hours, depending on how active you are and how much you had stored. Once that glycogen starts depleting, something interesting happens. Your body begins shifting to a different fuel source: fat. Your fat cells start releasing fatty acids into your bloodstream. Your liver then converts some of these fatty acids into molecules called ketones. These ketones can travel to your brain and muscles and be used for energy instead of glucose. This shift from burning glucose to burning fat is often called the metabolic switch, and it is one of the main reasons people practice fasting for fat loss. When insulin is low and you are not eating, your body has no choice but to tap into its fat reserves. But here is where many people get worried. What about muscle? If the body is breaking down stored energy for fuel, will it also break down muscle protein? This is a legitimate concern. And the answer is, it depends. Here is what the science shows. When you fast, your body actually increases production of growth hormone. In some studies, growth hormone levels increased up to 5 times higher after just 24 hours of fasting. Why does this matter? Growth hormone helps protect muscle tissue. A study published in the journal Diabetes found that growth hormone is, and I quote, a decisive component of protein conservation during fasting. When researchers blocked growth hormone during fasting, muscle protein breakdown increased by about 50%. So your body has a built-in system to protect muscle when food is scarce. This makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. Our ancestors needed to stay strong enough to hunt and gather food, even when they had not eaten for days. A body that immediately started eating its own muscle would not survive long. However, this protection has limits. If you fast for too long, do not stay active, or do not maintain proper hydration and electrolytes, you can still lose muscle. The body's protective mechanisms are not infinite. This is where creatine enters the conversation. So what exactly is creatine? Let me explain it in simple terms. Creatine is a natural compound. Your body makes it every day, primarily in your liver and kidneys, using amino acids from the protein you eat. You also get creatine directly from foods like red meat and fish. Most of the creatine in your body is stored in your muscles, with smaller amounts in your brain and other tissues. Now, creatine is not a steroid. It is not a drug. It is not some synthetic laboratory creation. It is a natural part of how your body produces energy. Here is how it works. Your muscles need energy to contract. That energy comes from a molecule called ATP adenosine triphosphate. Think of ATP as the actual currency your cells spend to do work. The problem is your muscles only store enough ATP for a few seconds of intense activity. After that, ATP needs to be regenerated. This is where creatine comes in. In your muscles, creatine is stored as phosphocreatine. When ATP gets used up, phosphocreatine donates its phosphate group to quickly regenerate ATP. This happens almost instantly, much faster than other energy systems. The result: you can maintain high-intensity effort for a few extra seconds. You can push out 1 or 2 more reps. You can recover faster between sets. Now you might think a few extra seconds does not sound like much. But over weeks and months of training, those extra reps add up. More total work means more stimulus for your muscles to adapt and grow. This is not speculation. Creatine is one of the most researched supplements in existence. The International Society of Sports Nutrition reviewed over 500 studies and concluded that creatine supplementation is safe and effective for improving high-intensity exercise performance. Their position stand also noted that long-term supplementation up to 30 grams per day for 5 years has been shown to be safe and well tolerated in healthy individuals. There is another effect of creatine worth mentioning. When creatine enters your muscle cells, it pulls water in with it. This is called cell volumization. Your muscles hold more water inside their cells, which makes them look fuller. But this is not just cosmetic. Research suggests that this cellular swelling acts as an anabolic signal. It tells the cell that conditions are favorable for growth and maintenance. The cell responds by increasing protein synthesis and decreasing protein breakdown. So creatine does two things that matter for our discussion. It helps you maintain workout intensity, and it may help signal your muscles to stick around. Now comes the big question everyone asks. Does creatine break a fast? To answer this, we need to understand what breaking a fast actually means. When people talk about breaking a fast, they usually mean one of two things: either consuming calories that restart digestion or triggering an insulin response that stops fat burning. Let us look at creatine through both lenses. First, calories. Pure creatine monohydrate contains 0 calories. It is not a protein, not a carbohydrate, not a fat. There is no caloric energy for your body to digest and absorb in the traditional sense. Second, insulin. This is the more important question. Insulin is the hormone that tells your body to stop burning fat and start storing energy. If creatine spiked insulin significantly, it could theoretically interfere with the fat-burning benefits of fasting. Here is what the research shows. Pure creatine monohydrate does not cause a significant insulin response. Studies examining creatine's effect on glucose metabolism found that while creatine may slightly influence glucose handling, it does not trigger the kind of insulin spike that would halt fat oxidation. So from a metabolic standpoint, taking pure creatine during a fast should not stop your body from burning fat. But there is an important condition here. This only applies to pure creatine monohydrate mixed with water, plain tea, or black coffee. If you mix creatine with juice milk, a smoothie, or any product containing calories or sugar, then yes, you are breaking your fast. What about autophagy? This is where things get less clear. Autophagy is a cellular cleaning process where your body breaks down and recycles damaged components. Some people fast specifically to maximize autophagy. Here is the honest answer. We do not have direct research showing whether creatine affects autophagy during fasting. Some experts argue that anything entering your body could potentially influence cellular processes. Others point out that a 0-calorie compound with no insulin effect is unlikely to significantly impact autophagy. The practical takeaway: if your primary goal is deep autophagy or cellular cleansing, you might choose to skip creatine during your fast just to be safe. But if your goal is fat loss while maintaining muscle and workout performance, creatine is unlikely to interfere with those benefits. So how do creatine and fasting actually work together? Let me walk you through the mechanism. When you train in a fasted state, you face a challenge. Your glycogen stores are low. That quick access energy your muscles normally rely on is depleted. Many people find their workouts suffer. They feel weaker. They cannot lift as heavy or do as many reps. This matters because maintaining training intensity is one of the key signals that tells your body to preserve muscle. If you suddenly start lifting much lighter weights, your body may interpret that as a sign that the muscle is no longer needed. This is where creatine becomes useful. Remember, phosphocreatine provides a different energy pathway than glycogen. Even when your carbohydrate stores are low, your phosphocreatine system can still function. By supplementing with creatine, you ensure your phosphocreatine stores stay topped up. The result: you can maintain closer to your normal training intensity even in a fasted or calorie-restricted state. You can still move heavy weights. You can still give your muscles a strong signal that says, "Hey, I need this muscle, keep it around." Let me put this in a simple framework. Preserving muscle during fat loss requires several factors working together. You need the right hormonal environment, which fasting provides through increased growth hormone. You need mechanical tension on your muscles, which comes from training. You need adequate energy for that training, which creatine helps provide. And you need proper hydration and electrolytes to support all of this. Creatine does not replace training. It does not directly build muscle by itself. What it does is help maintain your performance capacity when energy availability is limited. There is some research supporting this combination. One study on resistance trainers in a calorie deficit found that the group taking creatine lost about 1.4% of their fat-free mass, while the placebo group lost about 2.4%. Both groups lost similar amounts of total weight and body fat, but the creatine group retained more muscle. That difference might sound small, but consider this. If you are losing 20 pounds, keeping an extra pound or two of muscle can noticeably affect how you look and how strong you feel at the end. Now here is an important question. Does creatine work the same way for all types of fasting? The short answer is no. Different fasting approaches have different goals and durations, and creatine fits better with some than others. Let us break this down. Intermittent fasting like 16-8 or 18-6 protocols is where you eat within a set window each day and fast for the remaining hours. This is where creatine fits most naturally. You are still eating daily, just within a compressed time frame. Your fast is relatively short. Your primary goals are usually fat loss, improved insulin sensitivity, and maintaining or building muscle. In this scenario, creatine makes a lot of sense. You can take it during your eating window with food or during your fasting window with water. Either approach works. The key benefit is maintaining your training performance while you are in a slight calorie deficit. What about 24 to 48-hour fasts? This is where things require more consideration. Creatine can still be appropriate here, but you need to pay extra attention to hydration. Creatine pulls water into muscle cells. If you are not drinking enough water during an extended fast, this could contribute to dehydration or electrolyte imbalances. If you choose to use creatine during a 1 or 2 day fast, make sure you are drinking plenty of water, at least 2.5 to 3.5 liters per day. Consider adding electrolytes, especially sodium, potassium, and magnesium, and listen to your body for any signs of cramping or discomfort. For fasts lasting 72 hours or longer, creatine is generally not recommended and often not necessary. The goals of extended fasting are usually different. People doing multi-day fasts are typically aiming for deep autophagy, metabolic reset, or immune system regeneration. Creatine does not support these goals. Additionally, the risk of electrolyte imbalances increases significantly during extended fasts. Adding creatine, which affects water balance, can complicate things further. If you are doing a multi-day fast, your priority should be hydration and electrolyte management, not maintaining gym performance. Let me also address this based on your goals rather than just the duration. If your goal is fat loss while maintaining muscle and workout performance, creatine may be helpful. This is the classic combination where the synergy makes sense. If your goal is specifically maximizing autophagy for cellular, cleaning creatine is probably not necessary, and some would argue it should be avoided to keep the fast as clean as possible. If your goal is immune system reset or recovery from certain health conditions, these are situations that require medical supervision anyway. Creatine is not the priority here. If you are fasting for religious or spiritual reasons, follow the guidelines of your specific practice. Some traditions consider any supplement to break the fast, others do not. The point is, there is no one-size-fits-all answer. Understand what you are trying to achieve first, then decide if creatine aligns with that goal. Now I want to address something that does not get discussed enough. Creatine is not just for young bodybuilders. There are specific populations that might actually benefit more than average. If you are over 50 years old, this is relevant to you. As we age, our body naturally produces less creatine. The phosphocreatine stores in both our muscles and brain decrease. This contributes to age-related declines in strength power and even cognitive function. Research has shown that creatine supplementation can help older adults maintain muscle mass and strength. When combined with intermittent fasting, which has its own benefits for metabolic health and longevity, this could be a particularly valuable combination for healthy aging. Of course, older adults often have other health considerations, so working with a healthcare provider is especially important. For women particularly, those approaching or past menopause, there is something important to understand. Estrogen plays a role in creatine production. As estrogen levels decline during menopause, the body's ability to produce creatine internally decreases. This means women in this life stage may actually be more responsive to creatine supplementation than younger women or men. Studies suggest creatine can help menopausal women maintain muscle mass, bone density, and even cognitive function. And let me clear up a common misconception. Creatine will not make women bulky or masculine. Women do not have the hormonal profile to suddenly develop large muscles from taking creatine. What it can do is help preserve the lean tissue you have and support your training performance. Another point worth mentioning, creatine is not only about muscles. Emerging research shows potential benefits for brain health, including improved cognitive function during stressful or sleep-deprived periods. The brain uses a significant amount of ATP, and creatine can support energy production there too. Now we need to talk about who should not combine creatine and fasting. This is important for your safety. First, if you have pre-existing kidney disease, do not take creatine without medical supervision. Your kidneys process creatine and its breakdown product creatinine. If kidney function is already compromised, adding extra creatine is not advisable. I want to be clear about something though. Creatine does not damage healthy kidneys. The International Society of Sports Nutrition has stated this clearly based on the available evidence. But if your kidneys are already struggling, that is a different situation. Second, if you are doing a dry fast, meaning no food and no water, do not take creatine. Creatine requires adequate water to function properly. Without water intake, you risk serious dehydration and electrolyte imbalances. Honestly, dry fasting itself carries significant risks and should be approached with extreme caution. Third, if you are not committed to drinking enough water, creatine during fasting may not be for you. I cannot emphasize this enough. Creatine plus fasting plus inadequate water is a recipe for muscle cramps, headaches, fatigue, and potentially more serious problems. Fourth, as I mentioned earlier, creatine is generally not necessary or recommended during extended fasts of 3 days or more. Fifth, if you are pregnant or breastfeeding, there is not enough long-term research on creatine in these populations. It is best to avoid it during these times unless specifically advised by your doctor. Let me also give you some warning signs to watch for. If you experience any of these while combining creatine and fasting, stop and reassess. Severe headaches that do not improve with hydration. Heart palpitations or irregular heartbeat. Significant muscle cramping despite drinking plenty of water. Dizziness or confusion. Dark-colored urine which indicates dehydration. If any of these symptoms persist for more than 30 minutes, stop what you are doing and consult a healthcare professional. Your body is intelligent. When it sends distress signals, listen to them. The golden rule here is simple. Creatine is a tool, not a magic solution. Your long-term health is more important than any short-term result. If something does not feel right, trust your instincts. So where does all of this leave us? Creatine and fasting are not enemies. They are not working against each other. For the right person with the right goals, they can actually complement each other quite well. Fasting creates a hormonal environment that favors fat burning while protecting muscle through increased growth hormone. Creatine helps maintain training intensity and provides an additional signal for muscle preservation through cell volumization and energy support. Together, this combination may help you lose fat while keeping more of your hard-earned muscle than you would with fasting alone. But let me be honest about the limitations too. We do not have extensive direct research on the creatine and fasting combination specifically. Most of what we know comes from understanding each component separately and reasoning about how they might interact. Everyone responds differently. What works for one person may not work the same way for another. The only way to truly know if this approach suits you is to try it carefully and pay attention to how your body responds. If you decide to experiment with this combination, start simple. Use pure creatine monohydrate 3 to 5 grams per day. Stay well hydrated. Maintain your electrolytes. Keep training. And give it at least a few weeks to assess how you feel and perform. And remember, neither creatine nor fasting is required for fat loss or muscle preservation. They are tools that might help optimize results, but the fundamentals still matter most. Consistent training, adequate protein when you do eat, enough sleep, managing stress. These basics trump any supplement or eating schedule. I would love to hear from you. Have you ever tried fasting? What was your biggest challenge? Did you worry about losing muscle? Drop your experience in the comments below. And here is a question to think about. Some people believe fasting should be completely clean, with no supplements at all. Others think strategic supplementation makes fasting more effective and sustainable. Where do you stand? Let me know your thoughts. If this video helped you understand something new about your body, consider sharing it with someone who has been hesitant to try fasting because they are afraid of losing their gains. Make sure to subscribe if you want more content like this, where we break down the science of what actually happens inside your body. Thanks for watching. Take care of your body. It is the only one you have got. Imagine you've been fasting for months. At first, everything worked perfectly. Fat melted off. Energy soared. You felt sharper than ever. But then something changed. The results stopped. Your sleep got worse. You started feeling cold all the time. And now the only way you can lose weight is if you fast even longer. Sound familiar? Here's what's actually happening inside your body. And trust me, it's not what you think. Fasting doesn't just affect your metabolism. It radically affects your hormonal system. And if you think of hormones like a missile trajectory, just a few millimeters off at launch can change where that missile lands by miles. So when fasting starts messing with your hormones even slightly, the effects ripple through your entire body. But here's the good news. Once you understand what's going wrong, fixing it is surprisingly simple. It involves changing when you fast, how you break your fast, and matching your fasting to your actual life situation. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear blueprint that works for your specific situation, whether you eat a normal mixed diet, follow keto, or need to watch your blood sugar. Before we dive in, this is educational content, not medical advice. If you have any health conditions, please work with your healthcare provider. Now let's talk about what fasting actually does to your hormones. When you stop eating, your brain notices immediately. Specifically, a part called the hypothalamus detects the change in energy coming in, and its job is to translate that information into hormonal signals that affect your entire body. Think of it as mission control, sending out instructions to different systems. Here are the main hormones that respond to fasting. Insulin drops because you're not eating, so there's no glucose to manage. IGF, which is a repair hormone, also decreases. Cortisol increases, and this one is important, so we'll spend time on it. Your thyroid hormones. T3 and T4 change in specific ways. Glucagon rises to help regulate energy, and growth hormone surges, which actually helps protect your muscles. Now, here's where most people get confused. They hear that cortisol rises during fasting and they panic. Cortisol is the stress hormone, right? So fasting must be stressing out the body, but that's not quite what's happening. Cortisol rises during fasting for a very specific reason. Your brain needs glucose to function. When you're not eating, your body has to get that glucose from somewhere. So cortisol signals your liver to release stored glucose and even create new glucose from other sources. This is called gluconeogenesis. In other words, cortisol rising during fasting isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's your body protecting your brain. It's a survival mechanism that kept your ancestors alive during times when food wasn't available. The same thing happens with your thyroid. During fasting, your body reduces the conversion of T for the storage form of thyroid hormone into T3, the active form. Research shows this conversion can drop by as much as 54%. Some studies found T3 levels decrease by up to 55% within 24 hours of fasting. Why does this happen? Because T3 controls how fast you burn energy. When food is scarce, your body deliberately slows down your metabolism to conserve fuel. It's not a malfunction. It's intelligent adaptation. And here's something fascinating. Growth hormone actually surges during fasting. A study published in the journal Diabetes found that growth hormone is essential for protecting muscle during fasting. When researchers blocked growth hormone in fasting subjects, muscle protein breakdown increased by 50%. So your body isn't just sitting there letting your muscles waste away. It's actively protecting them. So if all these hormonal changes are normal and protective, why do so many people run into problems with fasting? The answer is simple. These adaptations are designed for short-term survival, not long-term lifestyle. When you fast occasionally, your hormones shift, you get benefits, and then everything returns to normal when you eat. But when you fast too frequently, too long, or under the wrong conditions, these protective mechanisms start causing problems. Let me show you the warning signs that your fasting might be pushing your hormones too far. First, skin changes. If you're noticing more acne rashes, redness, or unusual puffiness, that's often a sign that cortisol has been elevated for too long. High cortisol can also disrupt your sex hormones, which shows up on your skin. Second, hair and nail changes. If your hair is thinning, falling out more than usual, or your nails have become brittle, that's typically a sign that your thyroid hormones, specifically T3, have dropped too much. When T3 is low, your body deprioritizes things like hair and nails to save energy for more essential functions. Third, sleep disruption. This is a big one. If you're waking up at 4 in the morning wide awake, unable to fall back asleep, and then crashing by 9 or 10 in the morning, that's a classic sign of cortisol rhythm disruption. Cortisol is supposed to peak in the early morning and gradually decrease throughout the day. When it's dysregulated, it can spike at the wrong times, waking you up when you should be sleeping. Fourth, cold hands and feet. If your extremities are constantly cold and don't warm up easily, your metabolism has likely slowed down significantly. This is your thyroid putting the brakes on energy expenditure. Fifth, intense salt cravings. If you suddenly can't stop craving salty foods, your body is telling you it needs minerals. It's a signal that you're depleted and need to eat. Now, before you blame fasting for all of this, I need to share something important. Cortisol doesn't just come from one source. There are actually two main contributors. The first is metabolic cortisol. This is the cortisol that rises from fasting itself, from depleted glycogen, from intense exercise at the wrong time, or from not eating enough calories when you do eat. The second is lifestyle cortisol. This comes from poor sleep work, stress, anxiety, relationship problems, or working night shifts. This type of cortisol has nothing to do with fasting. Here's the key insight. You don't need to guess which one is affecting you. You just need to look at three things. How is your sleep? What's your current stress level? And what type of exercise are you doing? If all three are problematic, fasting isn't causing your issues. It's just the final straw on an already overwhelmed system. And in that case, fasting shorter or less frequently might help, but it won't solve the underlying problem. Okay, let's pause here and recap what we've covered so far. 1. Fasting dramatically affects your hormones. Insulin drops, cortisol rises, thyroid slows down. This is normal and protective in the short term. 2. Cortisol rises specifically to keep your brain supplied with glucose. It's not punishment, it's protection. 3. When these changes happen too often or for too long, you get warning signs. Skin problems, hair loss, sleep disruption, cold hands and feet, and salt cravings. 4. Cortisol comes from two sources: metabolic stress from fasting and exercise, and lifestyle stress from poor sleep, work pressure, and anxiety. Now let's talk about one of the biggest mistakes people make: combining intense exercise with extended fasting. A study published in Physiology Reports compared regular intermittent fasting to intermittent fasting combined with high-intensity interval training. The results were striking. The group that combined fasting with high-intensity training showed decreased muscle fiber size, increased cell death, and elevated levels of myostatin, which is a protein that actually blocks muscle growth. In other words, the exact opposite of what you want from exercise. Why does this happen? Because both fasting and high-intensity exercise raise cortisol. When you combine them, you get a compound effect. Cortisol stays elevated much longer, and instead of building muscle, you start breaking it down. Research shows that cortisol remains elevated for about 60 minutes after high-intensity exercise, staying roughly 50% higher than baseline. It doesn't return to normal until about 2 hours after the workout. So here's a simple rule. If your fast has been longer than 14 hours, avoid high-intensity interval training. You can still do it if your fast is under 14 hours. For example, if you ate dinner at 6 p.m. and work out at 6 or 7 a.m., you're still within the safe window. But if you ate at 5 p.m. and don't work out until 8 a.m., you've crossed the 14-hour threshold and high-intensity training becomes problematic. What should you do instead during longer fasts resistance training? Lifting weights with moderate intensity around 8 to 10 reps with adequate rest between sets. This type of training doesn't spike cortisol the same way, and it actually helps you take advantage of the elevated growth hormone that fasting provides. Ideally, you would break your fast right after your resistance training. The carbohydrates you eat will go primarily into refilling muscle glycogen rather than being stored as fat. That's actually a great metabolic situation. Now let's talk about how to fix these issues. I'm going to give you a blueprint with specific rules, and then I'll show you 3 different approaches to breaking your fast, depending on your diet style. Rule number 1. Move your calories earlier in the day. Research published in the journal Nutrients analyzed 14 different studies on fasting and cortisol. They found that people who ate their calories earlier in their eating window had more normal cortisol rhythms. Those who pushed most of their food to dinner had more disrupted patterns. This is hard for many people because we tend to break our fast with something small and then eat a big dinner later. But if you can flip this, eating your largest meal earlier in your eating window, your hormones will thank you. Rule number 2. If you're fasting every single day, your baseline should be 12 hours, not 16. I know 16 hours has become the standard everyone talks about. But if you're doing it daily, especially with any lifestyle stress, 16 hours every day is too much for most people. 12 hours gives you benefits without chronic hormonal disruption. Rule number 3. Push to longer fasts, only 1 or 2 days per week. Instead of trying to fast 20 hours every day, fast 12 hours on most days and then once or twice a week extend to 20 or 24 hours. This gives your body the deeper benefits of extended fasting without the chronic stress. Rule number 4. Match your fasting length to your stress level. This is crucial. When you're going through a high-stress period at work, dealing with family issues, or sleeping poorly, shorten your fasts. When life is calm and you're sleeping well, you can push longer. Your ancestors didn't have a choice about this, but you do. Use that advantage. Now here's something important. There is no single formula for breaking a fast that works for everyone. I'm going to give you 3 different approaches based on how you eat. The first approach is for people eating a normal mixed diet. When you break your fast, start with 30 to 40 grams of lean protein. Chicken breast, white fish, or egg whites work well. Add 20 to 40 grams of carbohydrates from sources like potato rice or fruit. Keep fat very low in this first meal. Why this combination? Protein and carbohydrates together trigger an insulin response. And remember, insulin and cortisol are like 2 ends of a seesaw. When insulin goes up, cortisol comes down. This combination helps shut off the stress response quickly. Wait about 60 to 90 minutes, then eat normally, including fats. The second approach is for people following keto or carnivore, who want to stay in ketosis. You don't need carbohydrates to break your fast. Instead, focus on protein with healthy fats. Whole eggs, avocado, fatty fish, or meat with natural fat content all work well. The key for you is making sure you're eating enough total calories and getting enough electrolytes, especially sodium, potassium, and magnesium. If you're well adapted to keto and not experiencing the red flags I mentioned earlier, you can continue this way indefinitely. However, if you are experiencing red flags like sleep disruption, hair loss, or feeling constantly cold, consider adding a strategic carbohydrate meal once or twice per week. This doesn't kick you out of ketosis permanently. It just gives your body a periodic signal that food is abundant. The third approach is for people with diabetes or those monitoring blood sugar closely. Your priority is blood sugar stability. Break your fast with protein and fat first, along with non-starchy vegetables. This creates a foundation that slows glucose absorption. If you include carbohydrates, keep the portion small, choose low glycemic options, and eat them after you've already had protein and fat. This sequence significantly reduces blood sugar spikes. Most importantly, monitor your blood glucose and work with your healthcare provider. Fasting can be beneficial for blood sugar management, but it needs to be done carefully and individually. You see, when you hear different experts giving contradictory advice about breaking a fast, they're usually not wrong. They're just talking to different audiences with different goals and different metabolic situations. Now, let me give you some simple weekly templates you can start using immediately. Template A is for people with high stress or those just starting out. 5 or 6 days per week fast for 12 hours. That could be 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. On 1 day per week, if you're feeling good, extend to 16 hours. Focus on gentle exercise like walking yoga or light resistance training. Avoid intense cardio until your stress is lower. Template B is for people who exercise regularly at the gym. On training days, keep your fast to 12 to 14 hours maximum and break your fast after your workout. On rest days, you can extend to 16 or 18 hours if you feel good. Save any high-intensity work for days when your fast is shorter, or make sure to have carbohydrates afterward. Template C is for people following a ketogenic diet. Fast 12 to 16 hours daily. Break your fast with protein and fat, no carbohydrates needed. Consider one refeed day per week if you're experiencing any hormonal red flags. Listen to your body and adjust based on how you feel. I also want to quickly address two specific situations. For women, your body may be more sensitive to energy deficits than men. If you notice changes in your menstrual cycle, that's a signal that your fasting is too aggressive for your current situation. Many women do better with shorter fasting windows, around 12 to 14 hours, especially during certain phases of their cycle. For people working night shifts, your goal isn't perfection, it's consistency. Try to eat within the same window each day, even if that window is at unusual hours. Consistency of timing matters more than hitting some ideal eating schedule that doesn't fit your life. Focus on reducing overall stress and getting the best sleep you can, given your situation. Now, a common question I get is, how do you know if your cortisol is actually elevated? There are 3 levels of monitoring you can do. Level 1 is simple self-tracking that anyone can do. Keep a journal for 1 to 2 weeks. Note how long you sleep, whether you wake up during the night, what time you naturally wake up, whether your hands and feet are cold, whether you're craving salt, and how your energy is throughout the day. After a week or two, patterns will emerge. Level 2 involves wearable devices if you have them. A fitness tracker or smartwatch can show you useful data. Watch your resting heart rate. If it's suddenly elevated compared to your baseline, that's a sign of stress. Heart rate variability, or HRV, is another useful metric. Lower HRV generally indicates poorer recovery and higher stress. Sleep tracking can show if your deep sleep is decreasing. These aren't medical diagnostics, but they're useful data points. Level 3 is knowing when to see a doctor. If your red flags persist for more than 2 to 3 weeks, despite making adjustments, it's time to get professional help. Other signs that warrant medical attention include loss of menstrual period for women, unexplained rapid heartbeat or palpitations, extreme fatigue that doesn't improve with rest, or any symptoms that concern you. A doctor can order cortisol testing through saliva or blood samples to get objective data. Before you go, here's your action checklist. 5 things you can start doing today. 1. Look at your baseline. If you're fasting 16 plus hours every single day, consider dropping to 12. 2. Move your calories earlier. Eat your biggest meal earlier in your eating window rather than saving everything for dinner. 3. Check your exercise timing. If you're doing high-intensity training more than 14 hours into a fast, either add carbohydrates afterward or train earlier in your fasting window. 4. Track for 1 week. Just notice your sleep quality, energy levels, and any red flags. Awareness is the first step. 5. Match your fasting to your stress. High stress week means shorter fasts. Low stress week means you can push a bit more. And if you've ever been confused because you heard 2 experts say completely opposite things about fasting, Here's the explanation. They're usually both right, but they're talking about different situations, different goals, different stress levels, different health histories, different metabolic states. No one is lying to you. You just need to find the approach that fits your specific situation. So here's the truth. Fasting isn't broken. Your hormones aren't broken. You just need to understand the conversation your body is trying to have with you. Every time cortisol rises during a fast, your body is saying, I'm protecting your brain. Every time your thyroid slows down, it's saying, I'm conserving energy for you. Every time growth hormone surges, it's saying, I'm protecting your muscles. These aren't malfunctions, they're features. The question isn't whether to fast, it's how to fast in a way that works with these intelligent systems rather than against them. What about you? What's your current fasting pattern? Have you noticed any of these warning signs? I'd love to hear your experience in the comments below. And if you know someone who's been struggling with their fasting results, feeling stuck, or experiencing weird symptoms they can't explain, share this video with them. Sometimes understanding the why behind what's happening is all it takes to fix the how. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Have you ever wondered why fasting works so well for some people but not for others? Same method, same fasting window, completely different results. One person feels energized, loses fat, and swears by intermittent fasting. Another person feels exhausted, hungry all the time, and sees no change at all. For a long time, people assumed it was about willpower, about discipline, about trying harder. But science has found a different answer, and that answer is inside you, coded in your DNA. Today, we are going to explore what scientists call the fasting genes. These are the genes that directly influence how your body responds when you stop eating. We will look at why some people thrive during fasting while others struggle. We will examine the specific genes involved and what they actually do. And by the end of this video, you will understand why your body reacts the way it does during fasting, and more importantly, what you can do with that information. Before we dive in, this is educational content to help you understand your body better. If you have any health conditions, please talk to your doctor before making changes to your diet. Now let us begin with a simple but important idea. Think about this for a moment. Some people can drink coffee in the evening and sleep perfectly fine. Others have one sip and they are awake all night. Why is that? Because the genes that process caffeine are different from person to person. Some people break down caffeine quickly, others break it down slowly. Same coffee, different effect. Fasting works the same way. How your body responds when there is no food coming in depends on many different genes working together. This is why your friend might fast for 16 hours, easily feeling great the whole time. Meanwhile, you struggle after just 12 hours feeling tired and irritable. It is not that you are weak. It is not that you lack discipline. It is simply that your genes operate differently. Research shows that genetic factors account for roughly 30 to 50% of the difference in how people's bodies process food and energy. That is a significant number. It means that a large part of your fasting experience is influenced by something you were born with. This is actually good news, because once you understand this, you can stop blaming yourself and start working with your body instead of against it. You can adjust your approach based on how your body actually works, not based on what works for someone else. So what are these fasting genes? Let us go through them one by one, and I will explain exactly what each one does in simple terms. The first genes we need to talk about are called SIRT1 and AMPK. These two work together, and they are absolutely crucial for what happens when you fast. When you stop eating, your body needs to find another source of energy. Food is not coming in, but your cells still need fuel to function. This is when certain important genes start working harder than usual. SIRT1 is sometimes called the longevity gene. Scientists gave it this name because it does many important things for your health and lifespan. It helps cells repair themselves when they get damaged. It helps your body burn fat more efficiently. And it protects cells from the kind of damage that accumulates as we age. When you fast, SIRT1 becomes more active. It is like flipping a switch that tells your body to go into maintenance mode. Instead of just processing incoming food, your body starts focusing on repair and cleanup. But here is the interesting part. The level of SIRT1 activity is not the same in everyone. Some people have gene variants that make their SIRT1 work stronger and faster. These people often see clear benefits from fasting because their repair systems kick into high gear. Studies on mice have shown something remarkable. When mice were genetically modified to lack the SIRT1 gene completely, they lived significantly shorter lives. And when SIRT1 was made more active than normal, mice lived longer and stayed healthier as they aged. Their bodies were better at repairing damage and fighting disease. Now let us talk about AMPK, the partner gene. Think of AMPK as your body's energy sensor. It is constantly monitoring how much energy is available in your cells. When you do not eat and your energy levels start to drop, AMP detects this change and sends out a signal. That signal tells your body to start burning stored fat for fuel instead of waiting for more food to arrive. Research has shown that fasting activates AMPK. And once AMPK is activated, it then activates SIRT1. These two genes work together like partners in a relay race. One senses the low energy situation, the other responds by turning on repair processes and fat burning. The connection between these genes explains why fasting can have such powerful effects on the body. But it also explains why those effects vary so much from person to person. Your genetic variants determine how strongly this partnership works in your body. Some people have a powerful response. Others have a more modest one. Now let us move on to a gene that many people are curious about. It is called FTO, and it has a big influence on your fasting experience. FTO influences two important things. First, how strong your hunger signals are. Second, how easily your body stores fat. Some people have a variant of the FTO gene that makes them feel hungrier than the average person. The signals telling them to eat are simply louder and more persistent. For these people, fasting is genuinely harder. Not because they lack willpower, but because the hunger signals in their body are actually stronger than what other people experience. This is an important point. If you have always struggled with hunger during fasting, it might not be a character flaw. It might be your genes. But here is the encouraging news. A study followed 57 people with overweight and obesity during the month of Ramadan. During this time, they fasted from dawn to sunset every day for 30 days. The researchers measured the activity of the FTO gene before the fasting month began and again after it ended. What they found was surprising and hopeful. After 1 month of daily fasting, FTO gene activity decreased by 32%. The gene that makes people feel hungrier and store fat more easily became significantly less active. And this happened even in people who did not lose much weight during the study. What does this mean for you? It means fasting can actually change how your genes work. Your genes are not your destiny. They are more like a starting point. The choices you make about eating and fasting can influence how those genes express themselves. This is a powerful idea worth repeating. The genes you were born with give you a starting point, but how you live your life can change how those genes behave. Of course, if you feel so hungry that you become dizzy or cannot concentrate, that is a sign your body needs you to stop. Always listen to those warning signals. Let us continue with another set of important genes. These are called clock and BMAL1, and they control something you experience every single day. Do you know why you feel sleepy at night and alert during the day? That is because of your internal body clock, also called your circadian rhythm. And this clock is controlled by genes, especially these two called clock and BMAL1. These genes do not just affect your sleep patterns, they also affect how your body processes food at different times of day, how efficiently you burn fat in the morning versus the evening, and even how other genes work throughout the 24-hour cycle. This is why when you eat and when you do not eat can be just as important as how long you fast. Research shows that fasting can affect many different genes depending on the time of day. The same fasting period can trigger different responses in the morning compared to the evening. Some people have body clock genes that work better when they fast in the morning and eat in the afternoon and evening. Others do better fasting in the evening and eating earlier in the day. In other words, it is not just about how long you fast. It is also about when you fast. And this optimal timing varies based on each person's genetic makeup. If you have tried fasting and it did not work well for you, consider this possibility. Maybe you were fasting at the wrong time for your particular body. Shifting your fasting window earlier or later in the day might make a significant difference in how you feel and what results you see. Now we need to discuss two more genes that affect important aspects of fasting. These are mTOR and APOE. One affects your muscles, the other affects your brain. Many people worry that fasting will cause them to lose muscle. This is a valid concern, and this is where understanding mTOR becomes helpful. mTOR works like a switch in your body that determines whether you are in building mode or cleaning mode. When you eat enough food, especially protein, mTOR turns on and your body focuses on building. This includes building and maintaining muscle tissue. When you fast, mTOR activity decreases. Your body then shifts into a different mode. Instead of building, it focuses on cleaning and repair. This cleaning process is called autophagy, which we will talk about more in a moment. During autophagy, your body removes damaged cells, old proteins, and makes room for new healthy ones. Some people have gene variants that cause mTOR to decrease very quickly during fasting. These people might lose muscle more easily because their body shifts to cleaning mode faster. Others have more stable mTOR activity and can maintain muscle better while still getting the benefits of the cleaning process. If you exercise heavily and are concerned about muscle loss, you may need to think carefully about your fasting timing and duration to find the right balance for your body. Now let us talk about the brain. Because what happens in your head during fasting is just as important as what happens in your body. The APOE gene affects how your brain uses energy. Normally, your brain runs primarily on glucose, which comes from the food you eat. But when you fast, your brain can switch to using ketones, a different energy source that your body makes from stored fat. Some people have APOE variants that allow their brain to make this switch very efficiently. These people often feel clear-headed, focused, and mentally sharp during fasting. Others have variants that make this switch slower and more difficult. They might experience what people call brain fog in the early days or weeks of fasting. Here is something interesting that recent research has revealed. People with the APOE4 variant, which is often considered unfavorable for long-term brain health, may actually benefit especially well from the ketone state during fasting. The initial brain fog they might experience could give way to improved mental clarity once their body fully adapts to using ketones. This brings us to one of the most celebrated discoveries in fasting science, a discovery that won the highest honor in medicine. In 2016, Japanese scientist Yoshinori Ohsumi won the Nobel Prize in medicine. He was honored for discovering and explaining autophagy, the cellular cleaning process we mentioned earlier. Autophagy means self-eating. It sounds strange, even alarming, but this is actually one of the most intelligent and beneficial mechanisms in your body. When you fast for a sufficient period, your cells begin a thorough cleaning process. They identify damaged proteins, worn-out cell parts, and even harmful intruders like bacteria or viruses. Then, they break these things down into their basic components. These broken pieces are then recycled. Some become energy. Others become building materials for new healthy cell components. This process is controlled by a group of genes called ATG genes. When you fast long enough, these ATG genes are activated and autophagy begins in earnest. This is one of the most important benefits of fasting, and it goes far beyond weight loss. It is about cleaning your body at the cellular level. You are essentially giving your cells the time and the signal they need to take out the accumulated trash and repair themselves from the inside out. Our ancient ancestors lived for thousands of years without regular meals. Food was not always available. Sometimes days would pass between successful hunts or foraging trips. Those who had genes that allowed them to function well during these periods without food survived. They lived long enough to have children and pass on their DNA. Fasting is not something new that modern humans invented. It is coded into our evolution. Your body knows how to handle periods without food. It has been doing it for countless generations before grocery stores and restaurants existed. The fasting genes we have discussed today, SIRT1, AMPK, FTO clock, BM, L1MTOR, APOE, and the autophagy genes. These all exist because they helped our ancestors survive during times when food was scarce. But here is what you need to remember, and this is important. Fasting is not suitable for everyone. Pregnant women should not fast. People who are breastfeeding should not fast. Those with a history of eating disorders need to be very careful. People who need insulin for diabetes should consult their doctor first. And people who are underweight should generally avoid fasting. If you fall into any of these categories, please talk to a healthcare professional before trying any form of fasting. And for everyone else, remember that your body always sends signals. Learn to listen to them. If fasting makes you feel significantly worse instead of better after a reasonable adjustment period, that is a sign you need to make changes. Maybe the timing needs to shift. Maybe the duration needs to be shorter. Or maybe fasting simply is not the right approach for your particular body. So what should you take away from everything we have discussed today? The most important thing to remember is this: genes are not destiny. Genes give you a starting point, but your lifestyle determines where you go from there. All the genes we talked about today, S, IRT1, AMPKFTO, the body clock, genes MTOR, APO, and the autophagy genes, all of these can be influenced by how you eat, when you eat, how you sleep, how you move, and how you live your daily life. If fasting has not worked for you in the usual way, do not give up completely. Try adjusting your approach. Experiment with a different time of day. Try a shorter or longer fasting window. Consider combining fasting with a different eating pattern. In the near future, genetic testing will become more common and more affordable. One day you might be able to take a simple test and know exactly which fasting method suits your particular genetic profile best. Until that day comes, pay close attention to how your body responds. Keep track of what works and what does not. Your body is giving you information all the time through how you feel, how you perform, and how you recover. The key is learning to read those signals and adjust accordingly. Now I want to hear from you. What has your fasting experience been like? Leave a comment below. Type easy if you find fasting relatively easy. Type hard if you find it genuinely difficult. Or type mixed if your experience varies depending on the circumstances. Here is an interesting question to think about. Would you be willing to take a DNA test to find out the best fasting method for your specific body? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you know someone who has been struggling with fasting, wondering why it does not seem to work for them, their DNA might be telling them something important. Share this video with them. It might change their perspective. Subscribe to the channel to discover more about the science behind your body and how to work with it instead of against it. In the next video, we will go deeper into one of the most important processes we mentioned today. We will explore autophagy in detail and examine how fasting activates your body's remarkable self-healing and self-cleaning mechanisms. Until then, remember this. Your DNA is not your destiny. It is your starting point. What you do with that starting point is entirely up to you. Have you ever noticed that when you feel anxious, your stomach feels uncomfortable too? Or when you are sad, you lose your appetite completely? Most people think these are just coincidences, but science tells us something different. Your gut and your brain are constantly talking to each other. And what happens in your gut directly affects how you feel, how motivated you are, and whether you can resist that craving for sugar at midnight. Today, we are going to explore something fascinating. We are going to look at how fasting affects this connection between your gut and your brain. Not just for weight loss, but for your mood, your motivation, and your ability to control cravings. By the end of this video, you will understand why what happens in your belly might be controlling more of your emotions than you ever realized. Before we dive in, this is educational content, not medical advice. If you have any health conditions or take medications, please talk to your doctor before trying any fasting method. Now let us start with the basics. Your gut and your brain are connected by a nerve called the vagus nerve. Think of it as a communication line running from your brain all the way down to your intestines. This nerve carries signals back and forth. When your brain senses danger, it sends signals down to your gut. That is why you feel butterflies in your stomach when you are nervous. But here is what most people do not know. 90% of the signals traveling through this nerve go from the gut up to the brain. Not the other way around. Your gut is sending far more messages to your brain than your brain is sending to your gut. And it gets more interesting. Your gut has its own nervous system. It contains over 100 million nerve cells. That is more nerve cells than your spinal cord has. Scientists call this the enteric nervous system. Some even call it your second brain. This is not just a cute nickname. Your gut can actually operate independently from your brain. It can control digestion, respond to what you eat, and send signals that affect your mood all on its own. In 1996, a scientist named Michael Gershon at Columbia University wrote a book called The Second Brain. He had spent years studying the gut and discovered something that changed how we understand the body. He was one of the first to show the world just how powerful this gut nervous system really is. Before his work, most doctors and scientists focused almost entirely on the brain when thinking about mood and emotions. Gershon helped shift that perspective. His research revealed something that surprised everyone. About 90 to 95% of serotonin in your body is made in your gut, not in your brain. This was a groundbreaking discovery that took years for the medical community to fully appreciate. Now, serotonin is a chemical that helps you feel calm, happy, and relaxed. When your serotonin levels are good, you sleep well, you feel stable emotionally, and you are less anxious. When your serotonin is low, you feel sad, worried, and restless. For decades, people assumed that serotonin was a brain thing. But it turns out your gut is the main factory producing this feel-good chemical. The brain is more like a small branch office. So if your gut is responsible for making most of your serotonin, then the health of your gut directly affects your mood. And this is where fasting comes in. When you eat constantly throughout the day, especially processed foods and sugar, your gut is always working. It never gets a break. This constant activity can cause low-level inflammation in your gut lining. You might not feel this inflammation as pain, but it is there, and it is sending signals to your brain. Inflammation in the gut sends alarm signals through the vagus nerve up to your brain. These signals can make you feel tired, foggy, anxious, or just off. You might not connect these feelings to what is happening in your belly, but the connection is real. When you stop eating for a period of time, something changes. Your gut gets a chance to rest. The constant work of digestion pauses, and that low-level inflammation begins to calm down. Within just a few hours of not eating, your gut starts to recover. The alarm signals going up to your brain begin to quiet. This is one reason why some people report feeling calmer and more clear-headed when they skip a meal or two. But the changes go deeper than just reduced inflammation. Inside your gut, there are trillions of bacteria. Some of these bacteria are helpful for your health, others are not. The helpful bacteria assist in producing the building blocks for serotonin and other chemicals that keep your brain healthy. The harmful bacteria can produce substances that increase inflammation and negatively affect your mood. What you eat determines which bacteria thrive. Sugar and processed foods feed the harmful bacteria. When you eat these foods constantly, the harmful bacteria multiply. The helpful bacteria get crowded out. Your gut becomes imbalanced. When you fast, you cut off the food supply for these bacteria. And here is what researchers have found. The harmful bacteria tend to die off faster when food is scarce. They have evolved to thrive when there is constant food available. Take away their fuel and they struggle. The helpful bacteria are often better at surviving periods without food. They have adapted over millions of years to handle times when our ancestors could not find food. So fasting can actually shift the balance in your gut toward the helpful bacteria. This shift does not happen overnight, but it begins within hours of your last meal. In 2023, researchers in China conducted a fascinating study where they had people follow an intermittent fasting plan for several weeks. They took stool samples to measure gut bacteria and used brain scans to look at brain activity. The participants lost weight, but that was not the most interesting finding. What they found was remarkable. As the gut bacteria changed during fasting, brain activity in regions related to willpower and cravings changed at the same time. The changes were not random. They were coordinated. The gut and brain were changing together in sync with each other. This study showed something important. Fasting does not just affect your gut or just affect your brain. It affects both simultaneously because they are connected. When your gut bacteria shift toward a healthier balance, your brain responds. The researchers specifically noted that bacteria associated with addiction-related brain activity decreased during fasting. This suggests that the gut-brain connection plays a role in our ability to control our eating behaviors. Now let us talk about what happens when you fast for longer periods. After about 12 to 16 hours without food, your body starts to shift how it produces energy. Instead of relying mainly on glucose from your last meal, your body begins to burn stored fat. This process produces molecules called ketones. Ketones are an alternative fuel source for your body and brain. But ketones do more than just provide energy. They trigger the production of something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF for short. Let me explain what BDNF does in simple terms. BDNF is a protein that helps your brain cells stay healthy. When BDNF levels are high, your brain learns faster, remembers better, and your mood tends to be more stable. When BDNF levels are low, you may experience brain fog, memory problems, and mood issues. Fasting increases BDNF. This is one reason why many people who fast report feeling mentally sharper. It is not imagination. There is actual biology behind that feeling of clarity. The ketones produced during fasting stimulate your brain to make more BDNF, which supports better brain function. Ancient humans experienced this regularly. When food was scarce, they needed to think clearly to find their next meal. Their brains needed to work well precisely when they had not eaten. Evolution selected for brains that function better during fasting, not worse. We inherited this biology. This also connects back to the gut. Remember those helpful bacteria we talked about? When they are thriving, they produce substances called short-chain fatty acids. These substances travel through your bloodstream and can also increase BDNF production in the brain. So fasting improves your gut bacteria, which produces more of these beneficial substances, which further supports your brain health. It is a positive cycle that reinforces itself. Now let us talk about something almost everyone struggles with: cravings. Why do you suddenly want chocolate at 3 in the afternoon? Why is it so hard to say no to chips even when you are not hungry? The answer involves two hormones, ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin is your hunger hormone. When your stomach is empty, it releases ghrelin, which signals your brain that it is time to eat. Leptin is the opposite. When you have eaten enough, your fat cells release leptin, which tells your brain you are full and should stop eating. In a healthy system, these two hormones work together smoothly. You get hungry, you eat, you feel satisfied, you stop. But for many people, especially those who eat a lot of processed foods and sugar, this system gets disrupted. Ghrelin might stay high even after eating. Leptin signals might get ignored by the brain. You eat a full meal but still want more. You are not truly hungry, but the craving is overwhelming. Fasting helps reset these hormones. When you first start fasting, ghrelin will spike and you will feel hungry. This is normal. Your body is used to eating at certain times and it expects food. But if you continue fasting, something interesting happens. Ghrelin levels actually start to decrease. Your body adjusts. The intense hunger feelings calm down. At the same time, fasting can help restore your sensitivity to leptin. This means when you do eat, your brain properly receives the signal that you are full. You feel satisfied with less food. The constant background noise of cravings begins to quiet. There is also a connection to dopamine here. Dopamine is a chemical in your brain associated with pleasure and reward. When you eat something sweet or highly processed, your brain releases dopamine. It feels good. But if you constantly trigger dopamine with food, your brain can become less sensitive to it. You need more and more stimulation to feel the same pleasure. This is similar to how addiction works. When you fast, you give your dopamine system a break. You are not constantly triggering it with food rewards. Over time, your brain can become more sensitive to dopamine again. Things that gave you mild pleasure before can feel more satisfying. You do not need as much stimulation to feel good. This reduced dependence on food for dopamine hits makes it easier to resist cravings. Now I want to be clear about something important. Fasting affects different people differently. Pregnant women should not fast. Women who are breastfeeding should not fast. People with a history of eating disorders need to be very careful and should consult a doctor. People with diabetes who take insulin must work with their healthcare provider before attempting any fasting. If you have kidney disease or are undergoing chemotherapy, fasting could be harmful without proper medical supervision. Even for healthy people, there are warning signs to watch for. If you feel dizzy for more than 30 minutes, that is a sign to stop and eat. If your heart is racing or you feel palpitations, stop. If you feel confused or have trouble thinking clearly, stop. Your body is sending you a message. Listen to it. Do not push through severe symptoms trying to reach some fasting goal. That is not worth it. For those who can safely practice fasting, let us talk about timeline expectations. Changes in your gut begin within hours of stopping food intake. Inflammation starts to decrease. Your gut lining begins to recover. You might not feel dramatic differences immediately, but the process has started. Between 12 and 24 hours, your body shifts toward burning fat and producing ketones. Gut bacteria begin to change. Helpful species start to gain advantage over harmful ones. Between 24 and 48 hours, BDNF production increases. Many people notice improved mental clarity during this window. Hormone levels start to recalibrate. Ghrelin spikes decrease. Beyond 48 hours, deeper changes occur. Autophagy, which is your body's cellular cleanup process, becomes more active in the gut lining. This can help repair damaged cells. Your gut bacteria continue to shift toward a healthier balance. But here is something crucial that many people overlook. How you break your fast matters enormously. If you fast for 24 or 48 hours and then immediately eat pizza, ice cream, and processed foods, you can undo many of the benefits you just gained. The harmful bacteria in your gut have been weakened during your fast. But if you feed them their favorite foods right away, they bounce back quickly. The positive changes you achieved can reverse within hours. Instead, break your fast gently. Start with easily digestible foods, vegetables, lean proteins, healthy fats. Give your digestive system time to wake up. Your gut has been resting and it needs a gentle reintroduction to food. Think of it like waking up in the morning. You do not immediately sprint out of bed. You ease into the day. Treat your gut the same way after a fast. The bacteria that thrived during your fast need continued support. Feed them with fiber-rich foods, fermented foods, and whole, natural ingredients. Foods like vegetables, fruits, yogurt, and whole grains provide the nourishment that helpful bacteria love. This helps lock in the gut improvements you achieved during fasting. The choices you make in your eating window can either amplify or undo the work your fast accomplished. Your lifestyle outside of fasting windows matters too. If you fast, but then spend your eating windows consuming junk food, the benefits will be limited. Fasting works best as part of an overall approach to health. Eating whole foods, managing stress, sleeping well, and staying active all support the gut-brain connection. Let me bring this all together. The connection between your gut and your brain is real. It is not just a figure of speech when people talk about gut feelings or trusting your gut. There is actual biology behind it, a nerve connecting the two, trillions of bacteria influencing brain chemistry, hormones and proteins passing messages back and forth. Fasting is one way to influence this connection. When you stop eating for a period of time, you reduce inflammation in your gut. You shift your bacteria toward helpful species. You increase production of BDNF, which supports brain health. You reset hunger hormones so cravings become more manageable. You give your dopamine system a rest so you are not constantly dependent on food for pleasure. None of these changes happen because of willpower alone. They happen because of biology. Your body has systems built in that respond to fasting in beneficial ways. These systems evolved over hundreds of thousands of years when our ancestors regularly went through periods without food. We are simply tapping into biology that already exists within us. This is not magic. It is biology. Scientists are still learning exactly how all these systems interact. New research is published every year, revealing more about the gut-brain connection. But the evidence is growing that what happens in your gut profoundly affects your mood, your motivation, and your ability to control what you eat. Fasting is a tool. Like any tool, it works best when used properly and when it is appropriate for your situation. It is not for everyone, and it is not a cure for everything. But for many people, it offers a way to reset their internal systems and improve how they feel. Have you noticed connections between what you eat and how you feel emotionally? I would love to hear your experiences. Leave a comment below, sharing what you have observed about your own gut-brain connection. If this video helped you understand your body better, please hit the like button and subscribe. We explore the science behind fasting and health every week, and I do not want you to miss the next one. Speaking of which, in our next video, we are going to talk about how to break a fast properly. Why that first meal after fasting is more important than most people realize, and the mistakes that can undo all your progress. Thank you for watching. Take care of your gut. It is taking care of your brain. 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day? Which one is actually better? This is the question millions of people are asking right now. Some swear that OMAD completely transformed their health. Others say 2 meals a day is the only sustainable way to live. So who's right? Here's the truth most people miss. This isn't really about which method wins. It's about understanding when to use each one and why. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which approach fits your body, your goals, and your life. Before we dive in, remember this is educational content, not medical advice. If you have any health conditions, talk to your doctor before changing how you eat. Let's start with the basics. OMAD means eating all your food for the day in roughly 1 hour, then not eating for the remaining 23 hours. 2 meals a day, sometimes called 2MAD, means eating twice within a 6 to 8 hour window, then fasting for 16 to 18 hours. Both approaches are forms of intermittent fasting. The main difference is how long you go without food. And that difference matters more than most people realize. Here's why. Every time you eat, your body releases a hormone called insulin. Insulin's job is to move sugar from your blood into your cells, where it gets used for energy or stored for later. When insulin is high, your body is in storage mode. Fat stays locked away. Your body won't burn it because it's busy dealing with the food you just ate. When insulin drops, which happens when you stop eating, your body finally gets the signal to start burning stored fat. The longer you go without eating, the longer insulin stays low, and the more time your body has to tap into fat reserves. This is the key insight. It's not just about how much you eat. It's about how often you eat. And here's something fascinating to consider. Our ancestors didn't eat 3 meals a day with snacks in between. For most of human history, food wasn't available on demand. People experienced natural cycles of eating and not eating. A successful hunt meant a feast. The days of searching meant fasting. Our bodies evolved in this environment. They developed sophisticated systems to thrive during periods without food. When you practice intermittent fasting, you're not doing something extreme or unnatural. You're actually returning to an eating pattern your genes already recognize. Modern life has trained us to believe we need to eat constantly. Breakfast as soon as we wake up, snacks to keep energy stable, eating before bed so we don't get hungry at night. But this constant feeding is the real departure from how humans lived for thousands of years. If you eat 3 meals plus snacks, your insulin stays elevated almost all day. Your body rarely gets a chance to burn fat. But if you eat only once or twice, insulin stays low for most of the day, giving your body hours to access stored energy. In 2022, researchers at Amsterdam University Medical Centers ran a fascinating study. They took healthy adults and had them eat the exact same number of calories. One group ate 3 meals a day. The other group ate everything in one meal. Same food, same calories. But the results were completely different. The 1 meal group lost more weight and burned more fat during exercise, even though they ate the same amount. This tells us something important. When you eat matters just as much as what you eat. Now let's talk about OMAD specifically. With 23 hours of fasting, your insulin levels have plenty of time to drop very low. This extended fasting window triggers something remarkable in your cells. When your body goes long enough without new food coming in, your cells start a process called autophagy. This word comes from Greek and literally means self-eating. But don't worry, it's a good thing. Here's what happens. When there's no new food to process, your cells begin cleaning house. They break down old damaged parts and recycle them into usable energy. Think of it as your body taking out the cellular trash and turning it into fuel. Research shows that autophagy becomes noticeable after about 16 to 18 hours of fasting, and it gets stronger around the 24-hour mark. With OMAD, you're hitting that deep cleaning zone every single day. In August 2024, researchers at MIT made a remarkable discovery about this process. They found that after a 24-hour fast, intestinal stem cells doubled their regenerative capacity. These are the cells responsible for renewing your gut lining every few days. The researchers discovered that fasting switches your cells from burning sugar to burning fat, and this metabolic shift signals your stem cells to become more active and regenerative. What's even more interesting is that this regeneration kicks into high gear, not during the fast itself, but when you start eating again. The fasting period prepares your cells, and the refeeding period triggers the repair. But autophagy isn't just about physical health. Many people report experiencing remarkable mental clarity during extended fasts. This isn't imagination. When your body shifts from burning glucose to burning fat, it produces molecules called ketones. These ketones can cross into your brain and provide a steady, clean source of fuel. Unlike glucose, which causes energy spikes and crashes, ketones provide consistent energy. This is why many people feel sharper, more focused, and calmer during fasting periods. Your ancient ancestors needed this mental clarity to find food when they were hungry. A foggy brain would have been a death sentence. So your body evolved to actually enhance cognitive function during fasting, not diminish it. So when should you use OMAD? It's ideal when you want faster weight loss results, when you need to reverse insulin resistance, or when you want to maximize cellular repair. OMAD is like an intensive repair mode for your body. But OMAD isn't the only tool in the box. 2 meals a day still gives you 16 to 18 hours of fasting every day. Your insulin still drops low enough to burn fat. Autophagy still gets activated just not as intensely as with OMAD. Here's the advantage of 2MAD. With 2 meals instead of one, it's much easier to get all the nutrients your body needs. Vitamins, minerals, protein, fiber. Fitting everything into a single meal can be challenging, especially if you have a smaller appetite or a sensitive digestive system. 2 meals a day is also easier to maintain long term. You can have lunch with coworkers. You can enjoy dinner with family. It fits into normal social life without constant explanations. So when should you use 2M? It works best when you've already reached your weight goal and want to maintain it when your digestive system struggles with large meals, or when you simply want a sustainable lifestyle you can follow for years. Here's the important shift in thinking. 2M. AD is not a weaker version of OMAD. They're different tools designed for different purposes. Now let's address something many people worry about. Digestion. A common question is whether eating one large meal will cause digestive problems. Will OMAD keep you constipated? Can your gut handle that much food at once? Here's what actually happens. When you're not eating, your intestines activate something called the migrating motor complex. This is a series of wave-like contractions that sweep through your digestive tract, pushing leftover food particles and bacteria out of your small intestine. The important thing to understand is that this cleaning process only happens when you're not eating. Every time you snack or eat a small meal, you interrupt it. So constant grazing throughout the day actually disrupts your gut's natural cleaning cycle. Fasting gives your digestive system time to do its housekeeping work. Most people who experience constipation while fasting aren't having problems because of the fasting itself. The real causes are usually not drinking enough water, not eating enough fiber during their meal, or eating too quickly. The solution is simple. Stay hydrated throughout the day. Include plenty of vegetables in your meals. And take your time eating. Your gut actually prefers having rest periods between meals. One more tip about digestion. When you break your fast, don't rush to stuff yourself. Start with something easy to digest. Give your system a few minutes to wake up before eating heavier foods. Your digestive enzymes need time to ramp up production after a fasting period. Eating slowly and mindfully will help you avoid the bloating and discomfort that sometimes happens when people eat too much, too fast, after a long fast. Let's move on to something that frustrates almost everyone who tries intermittent fasting: the plateau. You've probably experienced this. The first month, weight drops quickly. You're excited. Then suddenly everything stalls. The scale doesn't move for weeks. You start wondering if something is wrong with your metabolism. Here's what's really happening. That rapid weight loss in the beginning isn't mostly fat. A large portion is water and glycogen. Glycogen is the stored form of sugar your body keeps in your muscles and liver. Each gram of glycogen holds on to about 3 grams of water. When you start fasting, your body burns through glycogen first, and all that water goes with it. Once glycogen is depleted, your body switches to burning fat. This process is slower. It's supposed to be slower. Fat is a long-term energy reserve, not an emergency fuel tank. At the same time, your body has a built-in protection system. When you lose weight, your metabolism naturally adjusts. You burn slightly fewer calories because there's less of you to maintain. This isn't your metabolism breaking. It's your body adapting to your new weight. A plateau is actually a sign that your body is recalibrating. It's establishing a new baseline. This is normal and healthy. It doesn't mean you should give up or that fasting has stopped working. How do you push through? One effective strategy is to alternate between OMAD and 2MAD. This variation prevents your body from fully adapting to a predictable pattern. Make sure you're getting enough protein to maintain muscle mass. And most importantly, be patient. The plateau will pass. Speaking of protein, this is something that deserves extra attention, whether you're doing OMAD or 2MAD. Protein is essential for maintaining muscle mass during weight loss. When you lose weight, you want to lose fat, not muscle. Adequate protein intake signals your body to preserve lean tissue while burning fat stores. Aim for protein at every meal. This could be eggs, fish, chicken, beef, legumes, or dairy. If you're doing OMAD, you'll need to pack more protein into that single meal. If you're doing 2MAD, you can spread it across both meals. Either way, protein keeps you full longer and protects the muscle that keeps your metabolism healthy. Now here's a fear that keeps many people stuck in OMAD, even when they don't need to be. If I stop OMAD and switch to 2MAD, will I gain all the weight back? The answer is no. Not if you understand what's happening. Think of OMAD as your repair phase. It's the intensive period where you're correcting metabolic problems, losing excess weight, and resetting your insulin sensitivity. You don't need to stay in repair mode forever. 2MAD is your maintenance phase. Once you've reached your goals, 2MAD helps you sustain them while living a more flexible life. Weight regain happens when people go back to old habits. Snacking all day, eating processed foods, drinking sugary beverages. These behaviors push insulin high again and the fat storage cycle restarts. But if you maintain the same quality of food and simply add a second meal within a reasonable eating window, your insulin stays manageable. You won't undo your progress just by switching from one meal to two. OMAD is not a prison sentence. It's a tool you can pick up when needed and set down when you're ready. Another common misconception is that you need to follow a ketogenic diet to benefit from OMAD or 2MAD. This isn't true. The most important factor is keeping insulin from spiking repeatedly throughout the day. You achieve this by avoiding refined carbohydrates and added sugars. But you don't need to eliminate all carbs. You can eat brown rice. You can eat hot sweet potatoes. You can eat fruit. What matters is avoiding the foods that cause insulin to surge, like white bread, candy pastries, and sugary drinks. Keto can be a helpful addition for some people, but it's not a requirement. Don't let the belief that you need a perfect diet stop you from trying intermittent fasting. Focus on eating real whole foods and you'll see benefits regardless of your exact carb intake. Now let's address those of you who have prediabetes or are already managing blood sugar issues. Many people in this situation wonder if fasting is safe for them. The good news is that research shows intermittent fasting can actually improve insulin sensitivity over time. If you're taking metformin, here's what you should know. Metformin rarely causes low blood sugar on its own. For people doing 16 to 18-hour fasts, like with 2MAD, there's usually no need to adjust the medication. Your doctor prescribed it to work while you're eating, and it will still be active during your eating window. However, if you're considering longer fasts of 24 hours or more, you should definitely talk to your healthcare provider first. They may want to monitor your blood sugar more closely or adjust your dosage. The key for anyone with blood sugar concerns is to start slowly. Begin with a 12-hour fast and see how your body responds. Gradually extend the fasting window as you become comfortable. Listen to your body. If you feel shaky, dizzy, or unwell, break your fast and consult your doctor. This brings me to an important point about flexibility. You don't have to do the same thing every single day. Your body actually adapts well to variation. In fact, changing things up can prevent metabolic adaptation and help you avoid plateaus. Here's what flexible fasting might look like. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday you do OMAD. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday you do 2MAD. Or maybe you do OMAD on busy workdays when you don't have time for meals, and 2MAD on weekends when you're with family. The pattern doesn't matter as much as the principle. As long as you're giving your body extended periods without food and avoiding constant snacking, you'll see benefits. This flexibility is what makes intermittent fasting sustainable for life. It's not about following a rigid protocol. It's about having tools you can adjust based on your circumstances. Before we wrap up, let's be clear about who should be extra careful with fasting. If you're pregnant or breastfeeding, extended fasting is not recommended. Your body needs consistent nutrition during these times. If you have a history of eating disorders, the restriction involved in fasting could trigger unhealthy patterns. Please work with a healthcare professional. If you have type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes that requires insulin injections, you need medical supervision before attempting any fasting protocol. The risk of dangerous blood sugar swings is too high to manage alone. If you're underweight or recovering from illness, your body needs calories to heal. Fasting can work against your recovery. And if you're under 18, your body is still developing. Consistent nutrition supports healthy growth. For everyone else, watch for warning signs during fasting. If you experience persistent dizziness that doesn't improve with water and salt, if your heart races or pounds irregularly, if you feel confused or extremely weak, break your fast immediately and seek medical advice if symptoms continue. So where does this leave us? OMAD and 2MAD are not competitors. They're partners. OMAD is your intensive tool for repair, weight loss, and metabolic reset. 2MAD is your sustainable tool for maintenance and long-term health. You can use OMAD when you need to make significant changes. You can shift to 2MAD when you've reached your goals. You can alternate between them to keep your body adapting and prevent plateaus. There is no perfect eating pattern that works for everyone. The best approach is the one you can actually maintain. Your body is remarkably intelligent. It knows how to burn fat. It knows how to repair itself. It knows how to adapt. All you need to do is give it the time and space to do what it already knows how to do. Are you currently doing OMAD or 2MAD? Or maybe you alternate between both. Share your experience in the comments. And if this video helped clarify things for you, pass it along to someone else who's been wondering which approach is right for them. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video, where we'll dive into the science of breaking through weight loss plateaus. Until then, remember this: you're not choosing between two diets. You're learning to use two tools that your body has been waiting for all along.